This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. We could all use more time. Amazon Business offers smart business buying solutions, so you can spend more time growing your business and less time doing the admin. I can see why they call it smart. Learn more at amazonbusiness.com.
Welcome to PeopleTech, the podcast of the HCM Technology Report. We're recording from HR Tech in Vegas, brought to you by our friends and partners at Fuel 50. Here's your host, Mark Feffer.
Welcome to PeopleTech, the podcast of the HCM Technology Report. I'm Mark Feffer, and recording again today at the Expo Hall of the HR Technology Conference and Exhibition. And I have two guests with me, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves.
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Jason Averbook, CEO and co-founder of Leapgen, and I'm really excited to be here today.
Thanks, Jason. It's nice to see you.
Hi, Mark. I'm Jess Von Bank, also with Leapgen. I run Luminate, which is our vendor practice, and have a little to do with our brand and message in the marketplace. For all of these wonderful delegates of the conference, we get to work with both enterprises and all of the people making the solutions for this space. So it's very exciting for us to be here as well.
Oh, that's great. It's great to see you. So let me start with kind of a general question. There's a lot of energy at this show this year. Is that reflective of something beyond the fact we're not in our house because of COVID? I mean, are there things going on in the industry that you think have got the industry excited?
Yeah, let me go ahead and get started, and then I'm sure Jess will have something to weigh in. I mean, if you look at what the world has been through in the last 3 years, and when I say that, the first thing people always jump to is COVID, and that's not what I'm talking about. It's one of the things I'm talking about, but it's not all I'm talking about. We've gone through massive shifts around trust, in who we trust, what we trust, how we trust. Do we trust government? Do we trust HR departments? Do we trust the companies we work for? We've gone through massive shifts when it comes to how people work. COVID was an accelerant to that, but massive shifts into, is there hybrid work? Do people go to an office? We've gone through massive shifts in humanity, in trying to be more empathetic to workers and being demanded, to be honest with you, to be more empathetic to workers. We've lost a tremendous amount of workers from the workforce for lots of different reasons. So I could do that all day, Mark. I could go down the list. I could keep telling you about the changes over the last 3 years. But if you take just what I said, just stop right there. The energy and the excitement should be here because basically our industry has been flipped on its head. Mm-hmm. Anything that we did before 2020, we shouldn't be doing anymore, with the exception of the basics of getting people paid. We have to think differently about how do we personalize. We have to think differently about how do we scale empathy. We have to think differently about how do we automate and digitize. And to me, that's why the excitement's here. Like, there's a component of it which is like, wow, there's actually skin instead of just a screen to show a Zoom face. But the bigger excitement is we're in the midst of the biggest work transformation in the history of the world. And who wouldn't be excited to be in that industry?
True. Jess, did you have thoughts?
And, some of those macro issues Jason is talking about, really the entire fabric of the employment relationship has changed. And there are a number of reasons for that. There are a number of shifts that have occurred, but the most important shift that has occurred is the power shift. Employee power has shifted. So I think humanity and human psyche hasn't hyper-evolved, all that much over the last few years. Human beings at our core don't change quite that fast. A lot of things around us changed quite fast. And then the power shifted. So we're in a position to make decisions that we weren't in a position to make before. We're in a position to work on our own terms, which is an entirely new concept in the history of work. Employees calling the shots on their own behalf, that's why this is such a massive opportunity to democratize the experience of work, to democratize opportunity. That's why DEI can finally make progress, because the power has shifted and people are able to work on their own terms and in their own best interests. What an opportunity for people to live better lives. And employers who figure out how to deliver on that can make hay. This is not a loss for employers because the power has shifted. They need to figure out how to win the game differently.
But there's always this conversation about the power center has shifted in the labor force. And I'm wondering what happens the next time the economy tanks and the dynamics change, and they change more.
I think we've already seen it, Mark. I think the economy started to recover and the labor market didn't follow. Mm-hmm. The labor market didn't react and respond the way we thought it should, the way economics books tell us it should, because people, again, are making decisions differently. And so I think that's the most interesting thing we're seeing, is that this is the part that's not going to slide back. I think this is, this isn't a moment in time. This isn't a single event. This is truly an evolution.
You really have to, Mark, just back to your question, you really have to look at how the question of economy and humanity, they're two different topics. Mm-hmm. You can say the economy shift. The economy is going to shift up and down all day long. It's been doing it for decades. What's changed is the humanity component of it, and that a worker now realizes, and by the way, not just because of the pandemic, but because of the fact that there's Gen Zs who have been raised differently, who have been raised in a digital era, who basically are not going to work for a company that treats them like blah. They're not.
Right.
It's easy. It's not. And there's not enough people. Even if, back to your premise, even if the economy dips down, there's not enough people to fill the jobs. And every day, as you know, 4 people retire, 1 person enters the workforce.
Right.
Like, do the math. There's not going to be 20 million, 30 million, 40 million 20-year-olds dropped out of the sky ready to work. And we have to deal with that. So the employees have the power. I don't actually agree with you that the power is going to shift back to the employer.
Right.
They're going to have to meet maybe in the middle more than ever. But I don't think it's going to shift back. I don't think it should. I think if we let it as an HR industry, we're dooming ourselves.
What you're talking about, one of the dynamics, I think, is skills. There's been a large discussion about skills that's developed over the last couple of years. And it seems to have really worked its way into a lot of companies. Companies are taking it seriously. Can you talk about that a little bit? What do you think is driving it, and where do you think it's going?
Well, before we talk about skills, Jason talked about the labor shortage a little bit. The fact that we have more people retiring than entering the workforce. I call, Mark, don't be mad at me, I call BS on the labor shortage all the time.
Okay.
We have millions of workers who are underemployed, underpromoted, underpaid, which should be illegal corporate activity, underdeveloped. We do nothing to create pathways for them to move around and move up in organizations. We're underserving talent, and yet we say we have a labor shortage. We don't have a labor shortage. We have an underdevelopment problem. We have an underpromotion problem. We have a pay gap. So those are the things to fix, and that also requires, by the way, deconstructing jobs and reconstructing people based on a new foundation, which is skills. And I'd love Jason to build on that. That's truly, skills is part of this future evolution of talent that we're seeing. It's a really, really important common denominator that employers are going to have to get used to leveraging.
And we have a labor shortage. I know you're saying we don't.
Yeah.
We have a labor shortage based on how we're structured today.
Yes.
Like, if I could just expand on it. It's not that we don't have a labor shortage. There's not an argument whether we have a labor shortage. We have a labor shortage based on our world today.
Yes.
Based on our org structures, based on how we think of underprivileged, all of that other stuff, that creates a labor shortage. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we do have a labor shortage, but it's not a bodies necessarily only. It's based on how we structure our organizations today. And that basically, I don't let people work 3 companies at the same time. Mm-hmm. Why? Because that's an old model of work that we haven't shifted to. So when we start thinking about skills, and you said there's been a lot of talk about skills for the last 3 years. There's been a lot of talk about skills for the last 30 years. I don't, when you say 3 years, get it. Skills has just become the latest thing that, helps software vendors sell product, as far as I'm concerned. As a dinosaur, me, like I have the same skills data in the PeopleSoft talent profile that I developed in 1997. All we're doing now is we've got some AI technology to make it a little bit smarter. But what's changed is how organizations are using skills data. What's changed is the promise that we're trying to match people to roles. And what's happened is skills has gone from just what do you know to truly who you are. It's a really big difference. Because the way I've tracked skills for decades is what I know. And for the most part, that's self-stated. Hey, I know Java. Hey, guess what? I know so-and-so. Hey, guess what? I went to University of North Carolina. Is that a skill? Maybe, maybe not. Hey, guess what? I do volunteer work. Is that a skill? Maybe, maybe not. One of the things I'm going to be talking about, Mark, in my keynote tomorrow is the shift from skills to rarities. And really looking at the rarities of people and saying that it's not just about a skill. Because right now there isn't a common skills definition. And all of the world said, hey, we need a skills taxonomy. Cool. But a skills taxonomy only captures what people are stating about themselves or could be proven via some sort of an assessment. But there's a lot more about you, Mark, than what a skill is that makes you a huge asset to an organization. And until people start thinking about the rarities that make up a person, besides just the stated skills, we're going to miss the mark in putting the right person in the right role.
The other reason that's really, really important, Mark, is if we rely on employment history, acquired, validated, self-stated skills, we're never going to get diversity recruitment right. We're never going to overcome some of the barriers of entry that exist, that have been in place for a long, 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 long time. So if you say you're doing diversity recruitment, you have to come up with different ways to invite people into the workforce who hadn't existed. How are you going to get women in tech? You can't rely on employment history because guess what? You haven't been hiring women in tech.
And that's another rarity. It's another example of a rarity.
Yeah. So you have to overcome, you have to think about acquired and desired skills. You have to think about skills in a different way. And that will, by the way, support diversity recruitment. It will support mobility and development efforts. So it's a really important foundation to understand.
Are companies capable of doing that today?
They're not doing it today. Are they capable? Of course. It's a fundamental shift in the way they've constructed their talent strategies. And one of the things that we talk about a lot at Leapgen is rethinking talent altogether. You can't support holistic employee journeys in a heavily siloed talent function. You have to pull the skills thread all the way through from the moment you start attracting a human being to your organization and understanding what makes them up. What are they interested in? What do they have? What do they want? You start learning a lot about a person, including skills and capabilities. You have to have a way to pull that thread all the way through their employee life cycle and your organizational needs so that you can keep matching and mapping and having that conversation. We don't do that today. We can't do that today because we're too heavily siloed in the function itself and in our systems and infrastructure that support talent.
COEs are the poison. COEs, Centers of Excellence, are the poison of being able to do holistic talent management.
Why?
Just what Jess said.
Okay.
I have recruiters storing data on the recruiting process. I have people storing data about internal movement. I've got people storing data on learning and development. I've got people storing data on diversity and inclusion. I've got people storing data on career plans. But it's all different. It's all scattered, and it's not just data, it's the experience for the employee. I'm one person. I want to understand how one organization is going to care for me, love me, empathize with me, et cetera, et cetera. If each COE owns a portion of that and has zero handoff of not just data, but journey of feeling, of understanding how I inspire my existing workforce, I don't have a chance. All the technology in this place, Mark, all the technology, and you could say, hey, guess what? I'm going to push superpower button and make every piece of technology in this place 5 times more powerful. It would have zero impact until we fix the organizational structure of how HR thinks about talent. None of this technology will truly realize the potential that it has.
So that's a big task, changing the HR's traditional structure. How do you get that done?
You get it done by helping people realize that they can't achieve what they're trying to achieve. And unfortunately, the only thing that happens today, or one of the things that happens today, is people say, oh, guess what? We need a new tech. So we've got an old tech, we're going to buy a new tech, and all of a sudden they get the same result. Oh, we have a new tech, we're going to get the same result. So it's big. But, once again, one of the things we talk about, if work has changed, if workers have changed, if business has changed, what does HR do? Stay the same? That's the definition of insanity. So, we have to do something big. And once again, if you're scared of it, do something else.
And Mark, I'd like to say it's not an HR task. It's business strategy. I don't know how a business will operate in 10 years if they don't start making some of these moves now. And so that's the first thing to realize, and it's probably an HR self-realization that this isn't my work alone. I require alignment and buy-in and strategic, visioning
and partnership
and partnership across the business for this.
Because these people don't report to me.
Right.
All I'm doing is shepherding programs that help the business groom them, grow them, develop them, et cetera, et cetera. So, if I don't get the business support and I just roll out HR stuff.
You can read report after report that every CEO on the planet will tell you people are their number one priority.
Right.
But yet, the same CEOs would tell you they have trouble making people their number one asset. That's the chasm that exists. And sure, it's a fundamental change in the way they think about and activate people for the business. But again, the payoff is there. Now you have to figure out the strategy. And we talk all the time about prioritizing and sequencing the work so that you're not boiling the ocean. Sure, you have to eat the elephant one bite at a time. But if you do it in order of impact to the business, if retention is a problem today, fix the retention problem, but fix it in such a way that strategy feeds and supports the broader strategy. These are fundamental shifts you're making in the way you think about, which includes retaining and developing talent. We hear all about quiet quitting these days. This is not a new thing. This is not it's not an event. It's not a phenomenon that exists because of certain conditions that are happening right now. This is something we're just now trying to understand, and we can no longer ignore because we haven't. I actually think it's just a symptom of something that we haven't fixed yet, which is how are we seeing, empowering, activating people? If you do those things, retention won't be a problem.
So let me ask you, sort of look ahead. What does an effective HR organization look like? Where should it look like?
I can go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you think about an effective HR organization, the first thing it has to do is it has to have a vision and a why that's tied to business goals. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Which means it has to have a strategy capability. It doesn't just have people that do transactions.
Right.
Okay? So that's number one. So if my business goal is to acquire 3 companies in 2023, guess what? That's what HR needs to focus on. If my goal is to generate more profit in 2023, guess what? That's what HR needs to have as its success metrics throughout. Underneath that strategy layer is then thinking about how do I bring that to life? Okay, and I bring that to life in 2 ways. Talent and operationalizing talent. Okay, so I need someone who leads talent, not 18 people that lead talent, someone that leads talent, and someone that needs how to operationalize that talent. Answer their questions, show sympathy, have technology that supports them, et cetera, et cetera. And then I need people that are tier 2 and tier 3 that if my technology can't support the person, that person can go talk to and have a conversation like, I'm having a mental health issue right now. What should I do? Because guess what? Humans are humans outside of work, they're humans inside of work, and humans demand more empathy than ever before. So we talk, Mark, all the time about hands, heads, and hearts. What are machines good at? They're good at hands work. What are people good at? They're good at hearts work. So the future HR organization has to understand that, and HR has to get out of the hands work. Has to. They have to be digital, not do digital projects. They have to be digital and make sure that they structure themselves in a way where they're focused on the heads work, which is telling stories about data, and the hearts work, which is developing, growing that talent.
Right.
And if we think about that, that's like, those are, I mean, without going into org structure boxes, those are the two things: talent and operationalizing and enabling that talent, or activating that talent by allowing that talent to do the job we hired them to do versus doing a job that they don't know how to do, which is HR's job.
Just?
I mean, the only thing I would add, we talk a lot about, digital transformation and how do you make the function of HR digital. And part of that way of thinking is part of the shift that HR is experiencing. HR as a people function needs to learn how to act like experience creators, stewards of experience, also measurers of experience. What does that? We need to get as sophisticated in that function of the business as the consumer people are at customer attraction and customer experience. That's the lifeblood of the business, right? The HR function needs to think and sophisticate and evolve itself in such a way that they are as good at thinking about their own people experience as thinking about customers.
Jason and Jess, thank you so much for taking the time to stop by.
Amazing. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
You've been listening to PeopleTech of the HCM Technology Report. This HR Tech series is graciously brought to you by our partners at Fuel 50. For all other HR, sourcing, and recruiting news, check out hcmtechnologyreport.com.
Welcome to Don't Retire, Graduate, the podcast that asks you what you want to be when you grow up so you can graduate into retirement with a purpose and a passion, whether you're 25, 85, or any age in between. Gain actionable financial and mindset tips from your favorite authors, podcasters, and influencers to help you reach that exciting next chapter. Listen now and start building your path to financial freedom and reframing what retirement can mean to you. This is your host, Eric Brotman, reminding you, don't retire, graduate.
Faith in the news media has been challenged, making it even harder to get stories told. The Friday Reporter podcast was created to help audiences better understand the media by hosting journalists who will answer the questions to which we need answers. Join me every Friday to hear more.